is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us on your Friday. I'm Jeanelle Slade. Russ is off tonight. Well, more questions than answers after federal authorities announce if you're not 21, you can no longer legally buy tobacco. Now, the Federal Drug Administration says it is now illegal for any retailer to sell any and all tobacco products to someone under the age of 21. Well, a bit of a surprise for many across the country. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian touched bases with some Montana retailers and regulators and reports there's still a lot of uncertainty about this change.
Last week, President Donald Trump signed a package of major spending bills. One provision in that legislation raised the minimum age to buy tobacco products from 18 to 21. That applies to everything from cigarettes and cigars to vaping products. It wasn't immediately clear when the change would take effect, but the Food and Drug Administration's website now has a notice saying it's illegal for retailers to sell tobacco to anyone under 21. In this state, the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services is responsible for much of the enforcement around tobacco sales. A department spokesperson says leaders will be meeting next week internally to start working on an implementation plan, and that they'll release more detailed information once they have it. MTN spoke to several retailers in the Helena area. None of them wanted to speak on the record, but several business owners said the FDA's announcement came as a surprise, and they didn't feel they were given clear direction about how to proceed. What is clear is that there will be more questions in the coming weeks as the change moves forward. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
Thanks, Jonathan. And the FDA announcement comes just weeks after Montana regulators began implementing a ban prohibiting retailers from selling flavored vaping products. Well, Gallatin County search and rescue crews called to West Yellowstone today after a 56-year-old Utah woman crashed her snowmobile into a tree. Now, that accident happened on the South Plateau Trail System about 12 miles south of West Yellowstone. One of the snowmobilers in that group had to travel a few miles to get cell service and call 911. Emergency responders were able to reach the scene with a specialized snow ambulance. The woman suffered back and abdominal injuries and was transported to Rexburg, Idaho. Well, it is now prime snowmobile and snow coach season near and inside West Yellowstone. Now that means the search and rescue team must refocus its attention. MTN's Gabby Crevitt reports.
Snowmobiling season is a busy time for the Gallatin County Sheriff's Office.
About a quarter of the calls we'll experience for the year will occur in West Yellowstone during the winter. And our team for Sheriff Search and Rescue down there are ready for it.
Between accidents involving crashing into trees, avalanches, and drivers getting lost, the Gallatin County Sheriff's Office Search and Rescue Team plans to spend more time near the park. They say a lot of these incidences involve tourists and people visiting from out of town.
This is the time of year where we transition a little bit to the visitors that show up in West Yellowstone and combine horsepower, testosterone, and excitement and can get themselves jammed up a little bit.
But the search and rescue crew is also out there for experienced riders when they're having a rough day.
Search and rescue is kind of an important part and kind of a safety net for those people that are out having good days, being healthy, doing the things we want them to do, but that sometimes have a bad day. And we're glad to be out there to help people make that bad day a good story.
The Gallatin County Sheriff's Office wants to remind you to take the proper precautions when you go out for your motorized adventures this season. That means checking the weather forecast beforehand, being mindful of avalanche conditions, and of course, always snowmobiling with a buddy. Reporting in Bozeman, Gabby Crevitt, MTN News.
And Gabby tells us each search and rescue mission averages about $500. Well, on the weather scene tonight, Bob McGuire is tracking the biggest storm of the season. And here in Montana, mostly here in Montana, it's going to skip us.
Yeah, Montana and Wyoming, this thing's going to die. We're way down south. Let me show it to you. We go right here. You can see that low pressure cell over Arizona. Well, that's where it is, and it continues to push its way a little farther up towards the northeast. It's going to go into the Central Plains, and eventually it's going to wind up over in Minnesota. So that's where it is right now, and that's where it's going. But let me show you where this thing was and where it has been. Oh yeah, up there in the mountains has spent Christmas in Southern California, where it was a winter wonderland for the children there. They were building snowmen. No, they're new at that, so don't give them some slack. But if you had to drive I-15 to want to take you to Las Vegas, that had a lot of snow, and in fact, that even had to be closed. And over in Arizona, you did see some snow-packed cactuses. That's something you don't see every day. For us, we're not talking too much snow, but we might see a couple of flurries move into the Billings area tomorrow afternoon or so. We'll chat about it in a few more minutes.
All right, thanks so much, Bob. Well, a Billings organization working toward preventing and helping victims heal from sexual exploitation is now asking for the community's help. MTN's Maddie Morgan has the story.
The HER campaign is looking for volunteers to come help paint their new office space. The office space will be shared with 2 other nonprofits, Hope of Africa and Salt and Sage Web Studio. The HER campaign will use the office space for fundraising events, meetings, and indirect care for women facing sexual exploitation of any kind.
Office space will be used for indirect care, so fundraising and events and really raising awareness and just making sure that our community is aware of what human trafficking is. As we grow, we definitely need meeting spaces that are outside of the HER refuge because it's a secure environment, so we really need that.
They have also partnered with Salvation Army to launch a new project called the Hope Line, which is a non-emergency crisis line.
Any women that have experienced trauma and they don't know where to go, don't know who to turn to, they can call that line and get someone on the phone with a listening ear and with potential resources if they want to go further. It's not an emergency line, it's simply a hope line. That's what it's called, and that's the intention, is to give people hope and let them know that there's people that care and they're not alone.
The HER campaign is an amazing organization that has continued to give back to the Billings community every day. But now they need your help. So come on down and help us slap some paint on these walls, and no experience is required. In Billings, Madison Morgan, MTN News.
And Maddie tells us the group will be there tomorrow at the building in Josephine Crossing starting at 9 a.m. or you can go to the HER Facebook page to sign up or donate. Well, for the 13th year in a row, the state of Montana will make someone a near millionaire. This morning, the Montana Lottery drew the winning ticket numbers for the Montana Millionaire game. Those winning numbers are 0, 4, 2, 2, 3, and 0. But that's not it. Numbers for a $250,000 prize and a $300,000 prize were also drawn earlier today. The winning numbers were chosen by a certified random number generator at the lottery office in Helena. It's a relatively simple computer. Its only job is to draw random numbers for the lottery state games, and a lot of steps are taken to ensure its integrity. The machine is audited by a third party, is kept in a secure room that is always under surveillance, and it takes a minimum of 3 people just to access the room.
Not hooked up to the internet, doesn't communicate to anything. It lives in this room, it picks numbers, it gets certified, and that's its whole life. And if someone is interacting with it, our security team is there. There's a very limited number of people who've ever been inside that room.
So grab your tickets. Here are the winning numbers. All 180,000 tickets for Montana Millionaire were sold out on December 2nd this year. That's the earliest date in the game over the last 13 years of its history. Now, most of the revenue from Montana Lottery games go into the state general fund, with a smaller portion going into scholarships for Montana students. If you didn't catch all those numbers, you can head to KTVQ.com for another look. Well, coming up on tonight's 10 o'clock news, tragedy in Hawaii after a tour helicopter disappears and now remains have been found. We'll have the very latest. Plus, politics treaded some treacherous waters this year. We'll look back on the political world of 2019. And later in sports, number 7 in our countdown shows us a title fit for a king.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.